My name is Donald Barrett, and welcome back to the Cannabis Radio Network. Every Sunday night, 9 o'clock, tune in because we're going to be talking about a whole host of issues that really affect people out there. If you're watching right now, we're going to be talking about cancer over the next 60 minutes. And if you or someone you love does have cancer, and maybe they're using cannabis now, maybe they're considering using cannabis to help alleviate or wipe out some of the symptoms, so to speak, like nausea and lack of appetite. We're going to talk a little bit about that this hour because it's such a controversial subject, but so many people are using it to eliminate, and not only just to eliminate the symptoms related to cancer, but we're talking about there's some oil that some people are claiming that can help treat cancer, and we're gonna talk about that. So again, I want to welcome you to the show, and if you have any questions, comments, or observations during the show, please write down the number and call in. We would love to hear from you. The number here is 617-944-5111. Again, 617-944-5111. So anytime during the show, if you hear something, if you have a comment, question, observation, pick up the phone. Again, we'd love to hear from you. All right, well, let me start off with our sponsors, ProVerde Labs. Maybe you're familiar with...
We'd love to hear from you.
Maybe you're familiar with ProVerde Labs. They're the top lab out there in the industry that most of the dispensaries are going there now, and I believe all of them are going to go there in the future. ProVerde Labs, they actually test product for safety, make sure it doesn't have heavy metals and mold and all that type of stuff. So they're a very ethical lab as that goes, but they also do product development. And I know so many people are developing products, whether they're CBD products or THC products. And ProVerde Labs is really helping people step by step create the formulas. So if you get a chance, give Dorian a call over at ProVerde Labs. They're the best of the best, and they're always there to help. They're also a major sponsor of the show, so they're responsible for me coming to you every single week, one of the companies anyways. So ProVerde Labs. The other company is Deaf Payment Systems. The newspapers, open the nutpaper, another bank is shutting down a cannabis company. You know, because the laws federally are out of whack, so to speak. You know, they're not in alignment with the Massachusetts state laws. Anyways, what's happening is banks that are around the country, they're shutting down cannabis organizations. For instance, the Harvest Cup, they do a competition every year on cannabis. They don't grow or they don't sell cannabis. They basically do a convention every year. And their merchant account and their bank account was shut down, and they're basically, in essence, put out of business. And that's what's happening. And that's why so many people are reluctant to jump into the cannabis business, because they don't know what's going to happen next. However, if you watch our show and you listen and you understand what's going on, I think you can have some foresight, if you will, on what is going to happen. Because folks, make no mistake about it, in the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to be federally legal. And I'm just going to tell you why I believe that to be the case again. Because right now, Donald Trump is the president. And nothing Donald Trump wants more than to what? To win again, to be the president for another 4 years. Now, he knows if he comes out and goes against marijuana, goes and tackles the states and really suppresses what's going on in the marijuana industry, he's going to lose the election. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. He is going to lose the election. And if he goes after it after he wins the next election, if he wins, the business is going to be so big. I mean, it's going to be huge. The analogy I gave would be like trying to pull down a 747 with a rope. It'd just be too big of a business at that point. It's growing, and it's growing fast now. So that's my take on it. And by the way, if for some freaky reason he did come out and go against weed right now, the Democrats are going to run on a pro-marijuana platform and they're going to win the election, and it's going to be federally legal. So either way, you can look this 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 way. Folks, it's only going one way. It's going federally legal. So, if you're considering getting involved in a company, a lot of people are considering investing in things. I mean, this is the time. I hear people talking about cryptocurrency and all these different cockamamie things to make money. I'm telling you, cannabis has been around for thousands of years, folks, and there's never going to be a time or an opportunity like you have today in the cannabis industry as an investor or a business owner. So, on to the show. Let's talk about, for a second, cancer. Now, cancer is something that's very close. It's obviously very dear to my heart. Everyone that dies in my family, unfortunately, they die from cancer. My father died of liver cancer, never drank alcohol in his life, and he wound up with liver cancer. He lived actually 10 years with liver cancer, and then he died. And my mom had lung cancer, and she died as well. Never smoked. She smoked when she was really young and teenager, but she didn't smoke her whole life. And she wound up with a lung cancer. I also had a brother that died of brain cancer. So cancer is, running rampant, not only in the country, it's running rampant in my family. I think the latest statistics are 1 out of every 2 men are going to have cancer sometime in their lifetime, and 1 out of every 3 women. Now, when you go to the doctor, and unfortunately, they do the x-rays, and maybe the doctor comes in and you're diagnosed with cancer, God forbid. The next step is either chemotherapy or radiation. And folks, you may have a different experience than I've had, but I saw my brother, my mother, and my father both deteriorate like I've never seen people deteriorate because of the chemotherapy and the radiation. In hindsight, I probably just would have rather them just live their life instead of suffer with the side effects and the nausea and really everything that goes along, with chemotherapy and radiation. It's really, really sad. And cannabis has been illegal, and we all know this. It's been illegal for quite some time. However, we're discovering, and I don't care what newspaper you read or what magazine you're opening today, they're discovering the benefits of THC in cannabis in reducing symptoms like nausea. I remember my mother and my brother after chemotherapy and radiation, they were so sick. They were so sick. And the doctor would say the same thing. Go home and get lots of fluids and make sure you eat. And the last thing they wanted to do was eat. So with cannabis, and I saw it with my brother. Unfortunately, my mother and my father, they were old school. They would never try cannabis. That wasn't even like on their mind. They were not educated on it, and unfortunately, they relied on the standard pharmaceuticals that are out there, and they died really a miserable death with cancer. However, my brother with brain cancer did smoke. And my brother was I call him like a genius. I mean, he was an engineer for the MBTA, very, very intelligent. He had 3 young boys at the time, 3, 6, and 9 years old. I remember I went skiing with him. He used to take me skiing. He was my older brother. And we came home from the skiing trip, and he was sick all weekend. He was throwing up, and sometimes that happened because we did drink a little bit on the skiing trip. But we got home on that Monday. He went to the Mass General Hospital, and they found a huge mass in his head. And immediately had surgery, and unfortunately, he was never right again. And I actually moved in with him at the time. We went to all types of doctors. I went down to Houston, Texas, to a guy named Stanislaw Brzezinski, who was doing clinical trials on brain tumors at that time. I mean, I spent a lot of time with him. And I can tell you unequivocally that the only thing that helped my brother feel good in his own skin was cannabis. And when he used it, he was, you know, people looked at him funny, you know, he's pot, you know. It's a medicine, folks. And a lot of people have been using it for a medicine for a while, but it helps people with cancer. Okay, you want to give them Percocets and all these drugs, and you know, there's a natural God-given plant that works better, in my opinion, than all of them put together. And it's cannabis. And I want to take some calls in just a few minutes from some other people out there that have had experience with cancer and cannabis. So we'll get to that in just a minute. A lot of people saw the report this week with Sanjay Gupta, or actually I think it's on tonight. I saw the previews earlier, and he's been talking a lot about the opioid epidemic that's going on. And if you don't know about this, you've been living under a rock. That's the fact. You've been living under a rock. But a lot of people used to say, hey, marijuana is the gateway drug. It's the gateway drug. And you know what the gateway drug is, right? It leads to this. You smoke marijuana, all of a sudden you drink, and all of a sudden you're doing heroin. You know what I mean? This is their theory. This was their theory for a long time, the gateway drug. Now, when they actually study and they look at now all the studies and where cannabis has been legalized, they're seeing the opiate levels drop off like they've never seen before. So now they're actually doing a 180. Say this is the exit drug. This is the exit drug for a lot of people. And I think Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Gupta, actually just wrote something to Jeff Sessions to, let's get this federally legal. Let's push this along, and let's do the right thing. So I do have a caller on the line. Give me 1 second.
Hello.
Hi, this is Donald. You're on the air with the Cannabis Radio Network. Who's calling?
Hi, this is Sherry Tuckus. I'm from the Green Nurse Group. I'm a registered nurse.
Oh, hi, Sherry. Hey, thanks for calling in.
You're welcome. How are you?
I am doing terrific. You've been listening to the show, obviously.
I am.
Yeah. So you've had some experience with patients or people that have used cannabis that have cancer?
Yes, quite a few, actually. Without disclosing or violating anything, I've had a lot of patients that have mitigated symptoms. All kinds of patients, basically, with cancer within the hospice realm. Patients that are looking to mitigate symptoms of side effects of traditional chemo, radiation. Patients that want to bridge the gap from what they're not getting from regular medicines have been using cannabis. Patients that want to go all out for a full cure, using all types of tools, including cannabis. Patients that just want to live a quality of life at the end of life, using cannabis.
Yeah, right. Even in
cannabis
palliative care, sure.
Absolutely, and the things that I've seen and witnessed have been remarkable, and how people's lives have been positively impacted with this plant.
Now, one of the things I noticed, and I don't know if you heard the whole story with my brother, but appetite. I know when people have cancer and they're going through treatment, whether it's the chemotherapy or the radiation, they really lose their appetite. And obviously, we need to eat. It's the fuel that feeds our body to help fight disease. And if we can't feed ourselves, I mean, that is not a good sign. And I saw firsthand with my brother, and we all know when you smoke, you want to eat. But the nausea went away, and he was eating, he was gaining weight, he was feeling better. Is that common?
Yes, it is. And one of the things when I particularly work with cancer patients is I don't give them false expectations or false hopes. The main thing that I do with them is I ask them the sacred question of this: what is important to you? What is the most important thing to you? And let's work on that together. So we not only look at diagnoses, we not only look at symptoms, but we look at lifestyle and what's going on with the patient in particular and what's important to them. And generally, that's what we start with. We start with what is the number one thing that we want to work with to hold your hand and guide you through that. And the simplest things, people being able to sit at a dinner table with their family. I had a woman that I worked with, and I'm not going to say when or whatever. She has many young children. She's got cancer, stage 4. And basically, within 1 week, she was able to stand in the kitchen and make her family dinner. That's huge. Like, in 1 week of using cannabis as a tool, along with all of the other things that she's doing, she was able to actually make dinner. She says, I wasn't hungry, but I was able to do that. And then the next night, she says, being around the food in the kitchen with the family, cooking again, she started to eat a little bit. This is 1 week of a person that had to have someone completely come in and take care of her and her family and her kids, and her being able to now in the
feel
kitchen
like herself
around
again.
Food and not be nauseous.
Sure, and feel like herself,
Simple.
be part of the
Simple,
family.
simple.
Right. And that all goes to, the mental state and feeling better. When you feel better, it's just
and
unbelievable.
And here's what.
Go ahead.
And one of the things that I've noticed too is that when we're working with patients and we pick one thing, we don't tell them what is the one thing you want to feel better? What one thing do we want to work on? As we start to work on that one thing together, holding hands, getting them to that place of feeling better, certain other conditions that they have start to go by the wayside because they are feeling better. Once you can pull someone out of a perception of devastating, illness or severe chronic pain that's not being mitigated by anything, and you're able to shift their perception and pull them out of where they're at, things start to change.
Right.
It starts the domino effect.
Now, do you notice?
And they're not alone, and they're connected, and they're feeling better. And miracles happen. I've seen cannabis work miracles on patients that have gone from remission to full cure. Now, not expecting to. I had a patient graduate from hospice. That is unheard of.
Graduate from hospice?
These are graduate from hospice. Over 6 months' time, this woman went into remission. Unresectable tumor, failed chemo, failed radiation. I was called to take care of her and help her, which I did.
Well, this is what
we
amazes
were just
me.
Trying to make her feel better, decrease her pain, increase her quality of life. And over the course of 5 months, she went into remission. 7 months, she was cured.
And that's
and last month, she just went to Italy for 3 weeks.
That's the amazing thing. 'Cause I thought initially people were using cannabis to just alleviate symptoms. But a lot of people in the studies are now backing it up that it may very well be a treatment.
Oh, absolutely. And the science, because the plant is so complex and our bodies are so complex, and you have this intelligent plant that comes in and it goes where it needs to go and it does what it needs to do because of the way that it's made and our bodies are made, with the retrograde signaling and the ability for it to communicate, and for the whole purpose of using cannabis is to bring our bodies back to balance. And that's one of the big things that we're trying to teach people, is that when you're out of balance, it starts that domino effect. Now, you can bring something into your body. Go ahead.
Now, up until now, what have you used? What drugs have you used with patients to help them feel better? I know cannabis, that's obviously very, very new. It's been only a few years. But before that, what was available?
Well, the thing is what's been available that is actually coming to circle around, I think, which is really, really important, is all of the holistic wellness tools. If you look at some of the research now, when it comes to thinking about our bodies and how we have an endocannabinoid system and how we want to upregulate it to make it work better, the traditional holistic modalities, meditation, movement, exercise, yoga, nutrition, connection, spirituality, nature. All of that stuff helps to upregulate our endocannabinoid system to help our bodies work better. So if you just add in cannabis with that, that's just another wellness tool for preventative health care.
Right.
So I was speaking to an integrative doctor who uses cannabis as a tool, and he said there's all different types of people that are in the world, and they're coming in, and everyone wants to feel better. Basically, it's people coming in the front door of the house, and you want to give them the tour of all the rooms, all of the wellness rooms, all of the different choices that they can take to help make them feel better and to live a higher quality of life.
Right.
And they're open to learning all of it.
Right.
I mean,
who doesn't want a better quality? Who doesn't want a better quality of life, and especially
But then we have those patients that are coming in the back door that are devastated and broken, and they've tried everything, and they can't get back to the wellness. So
are these people that have smoked cannabis before, or are these people that have just they're new to cannabis? Yeah, I mean, I'm just asking.
Both. I've worked with patients that are completely new to cannabis, that have never ever used cannabis before in their entire life, and they didn't want to get high. Meanwhile, I told them, well, I'm going to be here with you while it's the experiential learning. Mm-hmm. And she says, am I going to get high? I said, I don't know what you're going to feel, but we're going to do it together. And when she medicated heavily with some high THC content medicine, she said to me, I cannot believe how good I feel. I don't know what it feels like to be high.
Right.
But I know what it feels like to feel good again.
That's what it is. So people forget what it's like to feel good again. That's what it is. People forget
and that's
what
my big, that is,
feel good again.
And that's one of the things that I always tell patients. Do not be afraid to feel good. We are a culture that suffers, and that I don't want to feel high, so I'll suffer.
Now, let me ask you one thing, because I know a lot of the one of the things I've been reading a lot about is the CBD. It's the CBDs.
Correct.
But the studies that I'm reading, it's usually the THC that's more beneficial if it has THC in it, rather than just the CBDs. What is your take on it? CBD.
They're both. My take, you need them both. Whole plant medicine is where it's at. Full spectrum, cannabis oil with all the, components is what I find.
Right. It's like a whole food nutrient.
Not only, exactly.
And then getting an isolate.
The entourage effect.
Right. Okay.
Exactly. The sum of the whole is better than its individual parts. Right. So I look at it as a basketball team. You have five basketball players. If you're missing one, it's not as good as the five. Right.
Right.
So the sum of the whole is always better than its individual parts. Although it's not to say that isolates don't have their, their effect.
Right. Do you find that it's better for people to smoke it, or I know people have vapes today,
There's so many different ways to use cannabis medicinally. And I always tell people when I do speak and I educate, my big thing is there's 3 ways to use cannabis. 1 is medically, 2 is recreationally, and 3 is irresponsibly. And there's a big difference between using it medically and recreationally, and it's a choice. One of the things that I always tell people, especially when we're going to use, when I'm talking medical-wise, is you want to use the least amount to get the most therapeutic benefit that you can from the plant. Less is more. There are so many different things that people don't understand that are really important with cannabinoid therapeutics, that if they really delved into it and started to experiment with it under guidance, they would be very amazed at what they learned, that you do not need a lot to feel good. There's been, my experience in working with one particular cancer patient and helping manage symptoms was that very, very low doses of THC and very, very low doses of CBD. This patient was the one that was able to go into complete remission from cancer and was cured.
That's unbelievable.
So she had, so my whole theory on that piece of it was her taking probably a total of 25 milligrams a day, total of THC, and maybe 50 milligrams of CBD a day, put her in complete remission in her late 70s with stage 4 cancer on hospice. My whole thinking was, wow, she only needed a little bit of cannabinoids in her body to help her body to start making its own internal endogenous cannabinoids to set her body into a healing trajectory. So she added just something to what she was doing in her journey that all of a sudden made the shift. It's like the light switch. This is what I needed, and now I can start to heal. And that's only one story that I'm sure that there's more of, but that's just my experience with a patient that was, literally dying, who's now living again with just a tiny bit of cannabis. It doesn't take a lot. Some patients do need a lot, some patients don't. That's the amazing thing about the plant in our bodies.
Some people watching, maybe they have never tried it before, maybe they're on a bunch of medication. Does it interfere with any medication, or do you know? Can you answer that question?
Oh, absolutely. There are specific medications that you have to be careful to take. And
okay.
Actually, anyone that wants to utilize this medicinally, we always recommend that they have a consultation to speak with someone that has worked with other patients that have gone through the system. Our goal is to be able to handhold patients and educate them, for them to get to know their bodies, them to get to know what they need, to become empowered, to become educated, to have the ability to make decisions on their own, informed decisions by having the right education with it. So yes, education is a huge piece of it, and I would never ever, I never would say, oh yeah, let's, sure, let's go, go grab a pipe and some herb and let's spark up and feel better.
Right.
Right? That's not what it's all about.
Right.
It's different. Because when people are really sick, they don't want to feel sicker. They just don't.
No, and they'll do anything to feel good again.
Anything to feel good again, and they're afraid, and they need someone to hold their hand, to be there with them, it's okay. Well, what if I feel funny, they say. My question then is, what if? What if you feel funny? Is it going to be feeling funny better or feeling worse than you already do?
Right.
So we always have to put it in context, is that you're not going to feel any worse than you already do now unless you take too much. But it's not going to hurt you. So that's the one thing we always, and that's why we need this. We need these educational platforms. We need to even get it more, because I can educate about a specific topic and a specific diagnosis, a specific disease, a specific symptom. But honestly, what it really comes down to is when I'm working with a patient, they get so much more from the one-on-one because it becomes more personalized.
Well, that's going to lead to my next question, and I got to get to another caller. But I'm sure a lot of people listening, and I know you're a registered nurse as well. I'm sure a lot of people listening are wondering, hey, how can I get a hold of her? How can I get a hold of Sherry? Did you give out your information, or I mean, you just?
I certainly will. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So greennursegroup.com. So we're a group of nurses, nurse practitioner, and we act as liaisons between patients and the medical cannabis industry. We do something very different. We use the nursing process, primary care nursing, the nursing process to handhold. We do consultations, recommendations, and care plans with ongoing continuity of care, where people who want to utilize cannabis as medicine come on a service with us, and they have access to nurses 7 days a week within business hours via calling, texting, or emailing to make sure that they are using cannabis safely to the highest medicinal benefit for wellness.
And this is all over Massachusetts?
Reach their goal on their health journey.
All over Massachusetts?
It is. It's all over Massachusetts. Yep. And
nice.
we're actually doing consultations over the country, throughout the country.
Sherry,
educational phone calls.
Awesome. I want to thank you for calling in, and I'd love to have you back on the show when we talk about things like this.
We have nurse practitioner. Yeah, we have a group of nurses that are absolutely fantastic, fabulous nurse practitioner. We're participating in research, and we would love to be on the show. You'd have fun with us.
All right. I'll reach out to you. So thank you for calling in. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
All right, we got a bunch of calls. I mean, cancer. I mean, everybody out there knows somebody or has cancer themselves. You either have cancer or you know somebody that has cancer, folks. And if you do, we're going to be talking about cancer for the next half an hour. How the cannabis and cancer connection, how many people out there are using cannabis to help alleviate, even eliminate symptoms associated with chemotherapy and radiation. And again, some people are using the cannabis as a treatment. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. This is a show. I'm not a doctor. We don't diagnose or treat or anything like that. We're just giving you information from real people just like you that are using cannabis and really having spectacular results. So I'm going to go right back to the phone lines because we're pretty busy. We have Rob on the line. Rob, are you with us?
I am.
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
Hey, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
All right, terrific. Yeah, thanks for calling in.
Awesome.
All right. One of my producers was telling me that you, or your dad rather, had cancer. Well, I'll let you tell the story. Why don't you tell our audience the story?
Yeah. We found out my dad had cancer back in 2016 after he wasn't feeling too well. And unfortunately, with my dad's situation, when he found out he had cancer, he only had one functioning kidney. So because of that, chemotherapy at the time wasn't really too much of an option for him. They told him that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and that would only prolong his life. He wouldn't live any longer, but it was going to just try to kill the cells, but it was definitely a death sentence.
So stage 4.
At that point,
when he was diagnosed, yeah. Rob, he had stage 4 right off the bat?
Right off the bat, so it didn't look good right off the bat. So my father, who was an engineer his whole life, always was into doing research, never smoked cannabis, just decided to start researching cannabis treatments and told our family that he was going to get a medical card and he was going to start taking Rick Simpson oil, which to everybody that I knew, we knew nothing about it at the time. I've been involved in the cannabis for over 30 years, and I had never heard of it before, and he bought a book about Rick Simpson and educated our whole family about it.
Now, for our audience, because I didn't know, and when I started to peel back the layers of the onion and find out who this Rick Simpson guy is, really an incredible story that has really been suppressed in this country. Give a little background on
really
Rick Simpson and his oil and what happened there.
All right, a little bit about the stuff that I know about Rick Simpson. A little bit about Rick Simpson is Rick Simpson discovered a treatment plan for cancer patients using a certain type of cannabis called Skellington, which is a very hard cannabis to grow. He actually discovered it with a couple other people. Jack Harrow was another gentleman that helped him discover it. And when discovering this, they found that this oil, when concentrated down to a really, really strong, potent dosage, could kill cancer cells. They, unfortunately, because of federal regulations here in the United States as well as Canada, weren't able to do the kind of research that they would like to because everything has to be privately funded.
Well, so it's not just that. It's not just that. In this country, and I sold supplements for years. I've battled the Federal Trade Commission because I sold natural supplements for years. And the funny thing is, in this country, the FDA passed a law, which is unconstitutional anyway, but the FDA passed a law that says nothing can cure, prevent, or treat a disease unless it's a drug. And the problem with that is everything's becoming a disease. You used to be tired. Now you have chronic fatigue syndrome. Your legs used to get tired. Now you got restless leg syndrome, a disease. So, I mean, they make it so, I mean, natural products, people that sell natural products, not just cannabis, can't tell the public what the product actually does because the FDA gets in the way. Is that?
Oh, that's true. I can see that. Yes. Yes, definitely.
Have you seen? You've seen that, right?
Yes, definitely. So, really, with my dad's story and the Rick Simpson oil, for a lot of people that might not know about it, my dad was very blessed enough to be able to afford to go to the dispensary and buy this oil, which is extremely, extremely expensive. The oil itself is only available at Good Health dispensary in Brockton.
Now I know there's a lot of rip-off products, right? Because I was told Rick Simpson oil is here, it's there, it's everywhere, but you were telling me it's not the same.
Right. There's a lot of misconception about the Rick Simpson oil. The Rick Simpson oil is a special blend that's used with special type of cannabis. The special cannabis is only grown around here in Brockton. They grow it themselves. It's extremely hard to grow. It's a very strong blend. It is. My father was on between 46 and 49% THC, and the same as well as CBD. So the cross between the two, it would put an elephant down.
And
it really would.
What benefits did you see your father experience right away? Because at that time, he probably wasn't feeling well, had nausea. I mean,
right.
Tell me.
I would say he started to be able to eat again. He started to have more energy. He really started. He was more upbeat. Things started to look good, and his numbers went down dramatically. His cancer numbers really started to go down. And there was no other way, as in all his counts, like his counts on his cancer count numbers.
Like PSA
were way up
levels and things like that. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, the levels started going way down, and there was no other way to explain it besides that it was the cannabis. But after time, unfortunately, stage 4 cancer just decided that it was going to be more powerful than Rick Simpson could be, and we lost him last year in August. But the one thing I will say that I want people to know is anybody that knows about stage 4 pancreatic cancer, it's a death sentence of pain. My father was very blessed that never one day did he suffer in pain. He may not have been able to eat too much at the end, but his quality of life would have never been the same if he had to suffer by using chemo, and the availability of cannabis wasn't there for him.
Wow. I mean, that's tremendous. I'm sorry for your loss, by the way, but it's just, I want to
thank you. I appreciate it.
Really, thanks for calling in, because I think a lot of people out there are reluctant to try it, especially if they've never tried cannabis before. Say you've been diagnosed with cancer and you've went your whole life and you've never smoked cannabis. You were always told that, hey, you don't smoke cannabis, that's a no-no. And they're going against everything that they've always believed. But more and more people are trying it for the first time because what's the alternative? The narcotics, the drugs, I mean, for the pain? This is a natural plant that, thank God, that they're getting it out to the public. Whether it's recreational or medical, I mean, it's going to help so many people. I know you saw it firsthand. But it's just it's a tremendous time in the medical field with cannabis. That's for sure.
That's for sure, Don. And I wanted to thank you for your show and everything you do for the community and the cannabis community, getting the word out there about this Rick Simpson oil and letting people know. Please, if you're getting Rick Simpson oil for your family members, for people that you love, please make sure that you're really getting them Rick Simpson oil. Don't get a knockoff. Don't let people think that they're getting a cure or a possible cure when it's not the real deal.
And you say that's really only available at that one dispensary in Massachusetts?
Yep. Right now in Massachusetts, as far as I know, the last time I knew, there was only in Brockton at Good Health. They have a large list of patients that are waiting. It's a first come, first served thing. The email goes out as soon as it's ready. So if you have a medical card, or if you don't, you know someone that needs some oil, please get over there, help people out. It's the only way. It really is.
Awesome, Rob. I want to thank you for calling in and sharing your story. We got more calls to get to, but I really want to thank you for calling in. Okay.
All right. Have a great night. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye now. All right, I'm actually going to go to another call because we're actually kind of backed up here on calls. So hold on one second. We have a Chris calling in. Hold on one second. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for calling in.
Thanks for having me.
You're live with the Cannabis Radio Network. So tell me your experience. With cancer, cannabis, you've had some experience?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with non-small cell adenocarcinoma, lung cancer in 2010.
Small cell.
Non-small cell.
I'm sorry. Non-small cell. Okay, got it.
Which is typically a non-smoker's lung cancer. So it's more environmental.
Got it. That's what my mother had. My mother had the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's non-small cell is typically what kills more people. Lung cancer kills more people than all the other cancers, major cancers combined. So like breast and I think like all the other cancers. Yeah, it's the most prevalent and deadly cancer that's out there.
And it's not just from smoking today. It's the chemicals that you're breathing in. Like my mother was a hairdresser, and she was constantly breathing in these chemicals, and that's what kind of I attribute it to. Whatever. We can debate that. We can debate that all day long. But it's not just the smokers that get lung cancer today. It's it's the environment. It's the chemicals in the air. It's everything.
Yeah, it's exposure, and I want the callers to know and to understand before we get into this discussion that 50% of people, 50% of men, and 1 out of every 3 women get cancer now. So we're not just dealing with, I know somebody that has it, or I've met somebody that's passed away from it. Now, chances are you're going to get it.
Right.
And if you live another 20 years, you will have it because the rates are just going up astronomically. And it's really...
And when they talk about survival rates, the interesting thing is, and I don't want to get into a whole debate about it, but the survival rates are 5-year survival rates. That's all they go by is 5 years. And they have drugs that are keeping people alive longer, but they're sicker than ever before. And you get debated either way. But how did you get introduced to cannabis, and how did it actually help you?
Well, I got introduced when I was like 10 years old.
All right. So you used it when you were younger as well. Did you always smoke? I'm not a cop.
On and off.
You can tell me.
No, it's not that. It's just on and off. So, when I was in high school, I did, and then when I left high school and got a job, I had jobs that needed me to be, more professional, and so I didn't use anything like that, but I drank, and so I always had my vices. When I got diagnosed, that's when I knew I had to stop drinking because I knew I was going to have to do chemo, and you can't do chemo and drink yourself to death. I mean, you can if you want to, but you'll be gone a lot faster.
How old were you when you were diagnosed?
30.
30 years old.
Yeah, my daughter was 8 months old.
With an 8-month-old daughter.
Yeah, and I was looking at like a year to live. Yeah.
You must have been scared to death.
I was just angry. Yeah, I wasn't really so much scared. I was just really, really angry.
And you went to the best hospitals in Boston, obviously.
I did. Yeah, I went to MGH in Boston.
And you did
And they
the
saved my
standard
life.
treatment? Did you do the chemotherapy and the?
I did 4 rounds of IV chemo, and then and so I had it in my lung, but the reason why they found out is because I couldn't swallow. So I went in there because I was having a hard time getting food down, and had this thing called the barium swallow where they can see through an X-ray when you drink, and I couldn't get the food past a certain point, so so I went in, did a CT scan. My primary care physician was like, "Oh my God, I've got terrible news!" Like over the phone, like, looks like you have stage 4 cancer. So
Over the phone?
I called up my mother.
Wow.
Yeah, over the phone. He's like, "I've got terrible news," and my wife was holding my 8-month-old daughter, and I'm just looking at her doing like the cut my neck thing, like this isn't good, like looking at her while I was on the phone, just saying, "This is not good. This is not good." And she started crying, like holding our daughter. And, I'll never forget that day, man. That day changed my life, So, I ended up going to MGH because my mother was like, "You're not going to go to the best in the North Shore. You're going to the best in the world."
And we are lucky.
And
we are lucky enough to have great hospitals in Boston. I mean, I've always said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and hands down, because I don't live in Massachusetts anymore. I still talk to my doctors in Boston on a monthly basis. They're the ones that have me connected to all the best clinical trials here in the country. And if it wasn't for MGH, I wouldn't be alive, hands down. I mean, I have to give my credit to them,
right?
Because and obviously God, and then there's other things as well. But
hey, it takes a very special person to be a doctor, and I've always said that. So did they introduce you to? I mean, not introduce, but did they recommend using cannabis, or did you use it? I mean, how? Tell me how that.
As soon as I was diagnosed, I was like, "Pass me that joint."
I'd get the bong
because
when I got the bong.
When I got diagnosed, I was in the middle. I was doing jiu-jitsu, and I was doing lots of kickboxing and
very
running.
Athletic,
I was in pretty good shape. Yeah, I was in good shape. So I didn't have issues with breathing. Just something totally unrelated that ended up being, they took a sample when they did a biopsy, and that's how they found out what was wrong with me, because of the genetic testing that science provides now. If you go to a good hospital, they can tell you what's genetically wrong with you. What the mutation is.
Right. It's incredible.
But right. So they're really good at diagnosing and figuring out things, just like you were saying with the last caller. They're good at kind of pinpointing what's wrong, but they have a harder time stopping the mechanisms that are happening inside the body. That's where we have these problems. And so just to get to where, I guess I don't want to give too many details, but when we get into the Rick Simpson oil, I decided after doing lots of research, because once I got diagnosed, I was already searching the internet for anything I could to help, change my diet, change my lifestyle.
And you heard about Rick Simpson? You heard about the Rick Simpson oil?
Yeah, I had a couple friends say that I should look into it, and other things as well, like ayahuasca. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But for any callers that are interested in the alternative approaches as far as healing, I think those two almost run the same line as far as consciousness and how to find your inner, your intuition. Lots of people, I think the population has been almost weaned away from natural ways of healing. We
there's no doubt about it. I mean,
doctors
today there's a pill for your ill. You know, that's all it is.
Yeah,
It's a pill for your ill, and it's not a supplement, unfortunately. You go to the doctor,
Right.
and they have a prescription pad. And here you go, here you go, here you go. I mean, it's just, there's a pill for your ill.
Sure. So if you talk to your doctor and they want to give you if they're going to prescribe cannabis, they're going to give you Marinol. I think it's called Marinol.
Right, that's a
right?
pharmaceutical. That's a pharmaceutical blend of THC or
It's
something.
a pharmaceutical.
Marinol and something.
Yeah,
There's a few of them.
It's a pharmaceutical knockoff of cannabis.
Why
All
would
it
anybody
does is
want
help
that?
stimulate your appetite, because they want to help stimulate your appetite to get you to eat.
Wouldn't
So they
smoking a
take
joint do that?
they're just trying to find the compound that they can do to keep your weight up, so they can keep giving you the medicine.
I mean, wouldn't smoking a joint
Because
do
lots
that?
of the medicines.
Like, I mean, when
What's
I
that?
get so hungry when I smoke. I mean, if I smoke half a joint, I eat the other half. I get so hungry. I mean,
Right, but they're not going to prescribe you a joint because they can't make the money off of it.
got
You
it,
know?
got it. It's money.
So
It's the money.
you know,
That's the answer. It's the money.
right. You got to follow the dollar signs. So I mean, I guess maybe starting to ramble. I want the listeners to understand, like, basically what I'm about to get to, because I don't really want to get into the story about how I got into finding the oil and all that whole process. But I was the first card, or at least the first handful of the card carriers. I was there the day of, the morning of, at 9 o'clock at the doctor's door, knocking on the window, waiting to get that card. And I
Okay.
was there. I got the card.
And you got the Rick.
and
And
I
you went to
was-
get the Rick Simpson oil after you got the card.
I made my own. I just made my own.
Okay. There's a book out there or
I-
something that people can get to learn how to make their own. Is that what it is?
Sure. And it's really a very easy process. You know, if you start growing the plants, you can grow in Massachusetts.
Oh yeah.
I
no,
don't know.
Certainly.
I think it might be. So I mean, I had two rooms. Everything was legal. I had all my papers, and I did everything to a T, because I wanted to protect, you know, my rights as a citizen, but I also wanted to heal myself. And I'll be honest, it's not as easy. It's easy to make the medicine. It's a lot harder to have the space available to be able to grow yourself a pound when you're not allowed to grow a pound, are you? I mean, that's what you need in order to have a year's worth of medicine.
Right. Well, it depends
So
how thick
callers
and
need to
beautiful your plants
understand
are.
that.
Right. Right. No, I.
You know, if you're trying to buy enough oil, sure you can, because there's taxes involved. You're paying a company to make this medicine for you, but you're still paying somebody to make you medicine. In my opinion, I think you should just be able to grow whatever you need to heal yourself. If you need to grow a pound, you need a room that's big enough to grow you a pound, and you should just make the medicine. You'll save yourself thousands of dollars. But if you're not in a situation where most people can't afford to pay the electricity bills and to really get all the finances together to put you know, a room together to be able to do that, you know, going through somebody who can give you medicine that'll work can save your life.
Oh.
And I mean, I know that firsthand. I'm still here. It's going to be 8 years in July.
8 years.
And I'm
Now,
still here.
You're 38.
8 years.
38. You know.
38. I'll be 39 next month.
Now, so what happened? You started using the oil and the cannabis, and you went back to the doctors, and obviously you started to get great reports.
Yep, everything was really good.
You're
I was
cancer
doing
free
chemo
today.
for a while, and
You're cancer free.
no.
Okay.
No, I've never been cancer free.
Okay.
But
But you're alive.
but what I have, yes, I'm alive. I'm still well. You know, I mean,
You got 8 years with your daughter and more.
Yeah, I had another kid.
Oh yeah.
Life
All right.
doesn't stop just when you get diagnosed. You have to be able to see that this is you just have to change if you're lucky enough and you have good doctors and you do take the preventative measures and you do things like cannabis oil, you will be able to extend your life. I'm trying to extend my life as much as possible. So if cannabis is buying me 6 months every year and new medicines are coming out right behind that to buy me another year or to buy me another 6 months, then every year it's like I'm buying myself another year.
Hey, you live.
That's pretty much what's been happening.
I always say, live to fight another day, right?
Yeah, people get AIDS now and they can survive this stuff. You know, I mean, they're living with the condition. If you have it, why wouldn't you take something that could potentially save your life? I mean, let's put it this way, okay? I came off the oil. I was on it for a year, or I think it could have been a little bit over a year, right? I was on it and I had no issues at all. I was good. I was on my targeted therapy from my doctors, and I was on the oil. The doctors knew I was on the oil.
No interference, nothing. Yeah, okay.
No interferences. Everything was beautiful. My life was good, and I was exercising. I was doing awesome. And then I ran out of money. I couldn't afford the oil for a while, and you know, the winters were getting really cold, so I had to take the money that I had and I was, you know, paying my heating bills instead. And I ended up with a giant tumor in my spinal cord and 2 spots in my brain. And it went back on the oil after treatments. The doctors couldn't believe that I was able to do cartwheels. They couldn't, I mean, when I walked into the hospital, they couldn't believe I was standing up. They're like, how is this even possible? They couldn't believe it, because typically when somebody gets radiation on their spinal cord, you get neuropathy, you get a necrosis, you get like all these different side effects from the radiation.
And you attribute that to the oil, the cannabis oil.
Yes, because what the oil does is it actually binds to your receptors, and it helps build new, like almost like new nerve endings in a sense, because it
there has to be more studies.
I used to watch all the videos about it.
There has to be more studies.
Sure,
I mean, it's really incredible.
There does. There needs to be more studies. But the reality of it is, at least for me, is that when I first had the radiation done, okay, my whole neck was burnt, and like my skin was burnt, and I would scratch my arms until they were bleeding because the nerves were fried so bad that like I couldn't sleep at night. I mean, my life was, things were really bad for a while during that process. I had radiation every day for like, I don't know, 20, I think it was 24 treatments or something like that. I went in every day, Monday through Friday, for like 4 weeks or something.
Hey, Chris,
and maybe it was only 20 treatments.
Chris, I don't mean to cut you off, but I only have a minute left. We have a couple of stations that are going to break away in just a minute.
Sure.
So I do have to let you go, but I would like to have you back again on the show. You're very interesting. Thank you for sharing with our audience.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it. Just hold on, because we want to send you out a station, a hat, and shirt, and everything. So just hold on, and I'll
great.
I'll
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you for calling in. Let me put you on hold here, and I'll let them pick it up and get your information.
Okay. God bless. Thank you.
All right, folks, we're running out of time here, but this has been really a fascinating edition of the Cannabis Radio Network, or the Barrett Report. Cancer, folks, is ravaging America. We know that, and cannabis is helping so many people, and you've just heard from a few people on tonight's show. But go on the internet, Google it, look it up. Look up Rick Simpson. I'm working diligently to get him on the show here so we can interview him live, and you can call in and ask questions. But folks, cannabis is helping people in so many different ways, And that's what this show is all about. This is the Barrett Report on the Cannabis Radio Network. And every week we're bringing you the best of the best information and the latest information on cannabis. A couple things before we go. The Cannabis Growers Competition, Boston's Best Grower. We're putting up this because we want to find Boston's best grower. So go to the cannabisradionetwork.com, fill out the information. One of my staff members will be in contact with you. But like I always say, growers always say, I'm the best grower. And they fight with the other grower, how much better they are than that grower. You know, let's find out, folks. Go to the cannabisradionetwork.com. We're putting up $10,000 a weekend in Las Vegas. And not only that, you're going to get all the recognition that this industry has to offer. You're really going to make a name for yourself or your company. So the cannabisradionetwork.com, fill out your information and register for the Boston's Best Grower competition. We will see you next Sunday night at 9 o'clock. I'm going to do a couple of different things during the week where I'm going to come to you and tell you what we're going to be talking about next Sunday. But make sure you set it on your phone or put it on your computer, put it on your calendar. 9 p.m. on Sunday nights, we're coming to you live. And we encourage you to call in. We're probably going to be adding another hour to the show because we have so many people calling in. We have so many sponsors. This is really, really blowing up. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next week on the Cannabis Radio Network. Thanks for being with us.